So, hello everybody. I know I haven't uploaded much to my channel in a very long time. Normally, I would pre-write a statement for what I'm going to say today. Um, there have been many events over the course of my life. I am 48 years old. Very few things have ever happened that have made me fear for the future of all of us. The Challenger disaster, um, earthquakes, natural disasters, family deaths. I don't think it happened. I don't think anything up until 9/11 made me actually fear for the future. To contextualize this, it's not because I thought Muslim hordes were going to come into my country and kill everybody. Um, it was the reactionary elements within governments that made me fear the most. When the first Gulf War happened, I was in high school. And I was one of the few people in my high school that was very, very vocal about the consequences and the ramifications that going into Iraq faced for us, and the reasons why we were going into Iraq. In my yearbook photo, I wore a shirt that said, "No war for oil." Yeah, real revolutionary. I was asked repeatedly by administration to remove it or change the shirt. Eventually, that shirt was whitewashed in the photo of the yearbook. I was told that it was a mistake, but I knew otherwise. And today, what we see going on in the media, coming out of the rhetoric of our leadership, going into what will inevitably probably trigger another Middle East war, is beyond repulsive, it's frightening. And I say this because what we're watching right now is not just the fomenting of war, it's going to fuel the recruitment of terrorism for years to come. And this isn't something that's just going to stay overseas. It's not going to be something that's isolated just to Europe. This is going to have global ramifications for people who have nothing to do with this, who are powerless to change the leadership right now that is pushing this forward. And the fact that nobody, absolutely nobody in the world, has the balls to step up and do anything about this points to a larger problem in the world, where money still controls politics, where there is undoubtedly a pressure element exerted by certain governments on the rest of the world. And this isn't a Jewish question thing. I know this video is going to get an eyebrow-raising amount of, oh, this is JQ shit, and this is anti-Semitism. To be clear, that is not what this video is. You know, there are a lot of people out there right now on the internet that were not born during the Iraq war. They don't understand what war looks like for people involved in it and for people coming back. And for people who are shocked at what they're seeing coming out of Palestine right now, the civilian casualties. We did 10 times worse in Iraq. There were 1 million civilians that died. And we're not just talking about people that were burned or beheaded or maimed. We're talking about people who suffered debilitating physical and psychological injuries that last a lifetime. I personally had friends that came back from Iraq that were never the same. People who are not with us anymore. And people who came back who see what's going on right now and are scared shitless their children might have to go into this. And they don't and shouldn't have to. Our government is failing us. Our government is failing the world, and the governments of the rest of the world, most notably the EU, are failing us right now. For people to sit here and claim that any state, Jewish, Muslim, American, has a right to do what Israel is doing right now is absurd. And to clarify again, Nobody is saying that the 1,400 plus lives that were taken by Hamas on October 7th don't matter. They absolutely do. But the person responsible for that, not just Hamas, but is Benjamin Netanyahu and the leadership of Israel. For decades, people have been warning that the chronic push of settlements in the West Bank, the constant occupation of Gaza, this is a humanitarian catastrophe, and everybody is excusing it as the security of the Jewish state. People seem to forget what the Nazis did during World War II. They starved people out. They burned them alive. They beheaded them. They bombed them. They experimented on them. They made it impossible for people to survive. They destroyed entire families. Does that sound familiar to any of my Jewish listeners and watchers right now? Because that is what your government is doing to Gaza. And you wonder why the rest of the Muslim world actually hates you. You can't run from your past. All you can do is make a better future. And you seem to have no intent whatsoever to do that. You are intent on making the world burn. The genocidal rhetoric coming out of people like Ben Shapiro, Benjamin Netanyahu, the IDF war cabinet should scare the living shit out of everybody on the planet right now, because the consequences of a ground invasion in Gaza, the wanton death and destruction that will be displayed across the world on social media, will not be able to be erased. It won't be able to be censored. It is going to trigger a very violent and devastating response from the Muslim world. And they have, honest to God, every right to be angry, disgusted, and want revenge. Just as much as the Israeli leadership wants revenge so badly for their fuck up, mind you. And for people who think that what happened on October 7th wasn't a dereliction of duty on behalf of the Israeli government, I hate to tell you, there's no reason why it ever should have happened. Not to the scale it did, not for the length of time that it did. But nobody's talking about that right now. Everybody's talking about punishing innocent civilians for the actions of people who view Palestinians as cannon fodder. They have come out just in the last couple days and basically admitted they don't care about the Palestinians. All they wanted is an Islamic State in what is currently occupied Israel. If every Gazan needs to die for that as martyrs for the cause, they don't care. And Israel's going to give them that. That was the whole point of this exercise. Hamas is winning. Islamic extremism is winning right now. And the willing idiots of the Western governments, the willing idiots inside the Israeli government, are giving Hamas exactly what they want. So, people who don't think that misinformation on the internet is also going to fuel this, that is also going to make it easier for anti-Semitism to explode, I really want you to go and look at the documentaries that exist on the Rohingya Muslim genocide in Myanmar that were fermented directly by misinformation on Facebook. Facebook was complicit in a genocide. Facebook and Twitter and Twitch are going to be inextricably tied to violence against Muslims and violence against Israelis. It's already happening in my country. It's happening overseas. If this isn't quelled really fast, if the international governing body doesn't censor and stop Israel, this is going to get exponentially worse. And America is not going to be shielded from this anymore. Our immigration policies, yes, I understand the concept of humanitarianism, but I don't think you understand the ramifications that this has for the world as a whole. And we have no one to blame but ourselves anymore. Our alliances with people who have we allowed to just run rampant with genocide in mind. The echoes of Nazi Germany are all over this. And why people are supporting this fucking blows my mind. It is literally like watching us unlearn the lessons of the last 2 decades in a heartbeat. We learned nothing from the things that the American government did in Iraq and Afghanistan, in Syria, in Libya, in Somalia, in Rwanda, and the list just goes on and on and on. The fact that we refuse to do any level of negotiation in Ukraine is leading to the deaths of scores and scores and scores of Ukrainian civilians, not military personnel, actual civilians. And we don't care. We don't care as long as we're making our money from our war stocks and our war bonds, and we enrich people who don't pay taxes, that don't I mean, we're looking at an emergency funding request right now in America for $100 billion. Put that in your mind for a second. $100 billion. $20 billion could solve homelessness in America right now. Another $25 billion could guarantee basic health care for every American right now. And for my Republican buddies out there, all of my right-leaning friends who I talk to regularly, I want you to think for a second about the fact that your leadership doesn't care whether you die anymore. Okay? They were fine with you being cannon fodder in wars overseas. They don't care that you die at home now either. But they're willing to take every one of your hard-earned tax dollars and throw them overseas to fund a genocide that will have long-lasting consequences, not just for you, but your children, and maybe even your grandchildren at the rate this is going. You need to stand up and stop this. And I'm not saying violent revolution is necessary at this point. Nobody's saying that. But you need to hold your leadership accountable. And I'm sorry for all of my libertarian-leaning friends who are celebrating the fact that Joe Biden is a strong leader right now. Get your head out of your ass, please. I don't usually make videos like this. I've stopped covering a lot of politics, be it because I'm poorly educated on some of the issues, or because I'm overeducated on the issues and I can't rationally keep talking about things that seemingly the rest of the world doesn't give a shit about. Because I'm just screaming into the void. And it's psychologically draining, it's emotionally draining, and it does nothing better for me. I can do things outside of media that make things better on my local level, but this is something that I needed to talk about. And I'm not going to do crocodile tears like Hassan Piker, and I'm not going to sit here and scream and yell like a lot of leftist pundits do. But I'm beyond angry, I'm beyond exhausted, I'm beyond scared. At this point, I've kind of become resigned to the fact that there are things that are completely out of my control as a person. But I can do something to start changing the political structure of my country. It's no longer a local thing. Congress makes laws. We need to start getting people out of Congress that refuse to do anything for the American people, that refuse to stand up to presidents that have been given unlimited power to declare war, to mitigate military actions in the world that directly jeopardize American citizens. Every terrorist act that has come back at us has been due to the things that we have done in the world, that we have allowed our leadership to do in the world without any reins on them. We need to get senators and congressmen out of the House, out of the Senate, that refuse to do anything about this right now. There are elections coming up in 2024. Joe Biden, if he continues to just stand back and let Benjamin Netanyahu engage in what is absolutely blood libel and genocide, he needs to be removed from office. I'm sorry. I cannot sit here and willingly just be silent and say that Joe Biden should be president in 2024. I was resigned with the idea that Trump is bad. Yeah, Trump is bad. Duh. But what alternatives do we have out there? What do we have right now? We have Nikki Haley, who's a warmongering, pro-genocide, weird woman. You have Vivek Ramsey, who's just can't stop telling lies all the time. You have Ron DeSantis that sucks. He's a loser. So you have Biden and Trump. Biden pro-genocide, Trump is a fucking nut, but I honestly don't think that he would be supporting this. I could be wrong. Because he had very mixed messaging towards Palestine and Israel and Middle East peace. But where are all alternatives? Where are our young leadership coming up? What have we done to this country? We have made it impossible for level-headed people to run for office and become leaders of the free world. Where's Bernie Sanders betrayed us? John Fetterman betrayed you. You should be more angry, just as angry about that as you are about what's going on right now in Israel. But you're not. And it baffles me. It fucking baffles me. The Progressive Caucus has betrayed you. And you don't seem to care. You're more worried about being as anti-Israel and anti-Jew as possible to earn brownie points on social media. You're missing the forest for the trees. This is a turning point in America. This sends a very dangerous message as to what our government will take away from us in terms of rights and in terms of way of freedoms. And if this devolves into a regional war, the level of censorship that's going to come towards social media is going to be very telling in the next year or two. So I'm going to wrap this video up because I don't want this to run on forever. I am making an appeal right now to every American out there, regardless of your political affiliation. I'm appealing to you as a human being. You cannot be fine with children being killed. You cannot be fine with women being killed. You cannot be fine with elderly being killed, Holocaust victims, Catholics, Muslims, agnostics, atheists, gay people, all live inside of Gaza. They are being destroyed right now. There is no other word for it. They are being destroyed and genocided. We are looking at a micro-Holocaust. The scale should not matter anymore. It is not enough to sit by and just let this shit happen anymore. And this shouldn't just be pro-Palestinian people out on the streets marching anymore. I'm sorry. The lack of political action on this, the lack of people holding the Biden administration accountable for their tacit endorsement of this, it's actually depressing me. I've never been this sad for my country and for the people around me, because some of them don't seem to understand how bad this is for us, how publicly facing bad this is for us. We are literally joining hands with Nazis. The Zionists in Israel are Nazis. If you can't see that, if you don't understand that, if you haven't learned from history at this point, There is no future. There is literally no future anymore. This is the catalyst for untold death, untold destruction, untold suffering globally. And it's going to excuse a lot more of what we're seeing. Because every dictator out there is looking at this and seeing the fecklessness of the West and the endorsement from the West of land grabbing, of genocide, and they're going, hey, guess what? I can do it too. And to be clear too, the genocide and the land grabbing in World War II was bad. Really bad. But it was nothing compared to what state-of-the-art weaponry can do today. The amount of untold death, destruction, dismemberment, and psychological damage that can be done is beyond anything anybody can imagine right now. So I'm going to say right now, I won't be making any more videos on this because you shouldn't have to constantly remind people that genocide is bad, that land grab, blood libel is bad. If you need to be reminded of this, you're not a person. You really aren't. I'm going to dehumanize every person out there right now if you can't, on the very, very, very basic level, condemn this. As a Jew, as a Muslim, as an American, as a European, if you can't actually condemn what's going on right now. 3,000 American lives were not worth the million lives that were lost in Iraq. 1,400 Israeli lives are not worth 3,500 plus Palestinian lives, most of them children. Thank you for watching this video.